Chapter 1 of All Quiet on the Western Front. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. All Quiet on the Western Front by Erich Maria Remarque, translated by Arthur Wesley Ween. Chapter 1. We are at rest 5 miles behind the front. Yesterday we were relieved, and now our bellies are full of beef and haricot beans. We are satisfied and at peace. Each man has another mess tin full for the evening, and what is more, there is a double ration of sausage and bread. That puts a man in fine trim. We have not had such luck as this for a long time. The cook with his carroty head is begging us to eat. He beckons with his ladle to everyone that passes, and spoons him out a great dollop. He does not see how he can empty his stew-pot in time for coffee. Tjaden and Muller have produced 2 wash-basins and had filled them up to the brim as a reserve. In Tjaden this is a voracity. In Muller it is foresight. Where Tjaden puts it all is a mystery, for he is and always will be as thin as a rake. What's more important still is the issue of a double ration of smokes. 10 cigars, 20 cigarettes, and 2 quids of chew per man. Now that is decent. I have exchanged my chewing tobacco with Kaczynski for his cigarettes, which means I have 40 altogether. That's enough for a day. It is true we have no right to this windfall. The Prussian is not so generous. We have only a miscalculation to thank for it. 14 days ago, we had to go up and relieve the front line. It was fairly quiet on our sector, so the quartermaster who remained in the rear had requisitioned the usual quantity of rations, and provided for the full company of 150 men. But on the last day, an astonishing number of English field guns opened up on us with high explosive, drumming ceaselessly on our position, so that we suffered heavily and came back only 80 strong. Last night we moved back and settled down to get a good sleep for once. Kaczynski is right when he says it would not be such a bad war if only one could get a little more sleep. In the line we have had next to none, and 14 days is a long time at one stretch. It was noon before the first of us crawled out of our quarters. Half an hour later every man had his mess tin, and we gathered at the cookhouse, which smelt greasy and nourishing. At the head of the queue, of course, were the hungriest. Little Albert Kropp, the clearest thinker among us, and therefore the first to be lance corporal. Muller, who still carries his school textbooks with him, dreams of examinations, and during a bombardment mutters propositions in physics. Lear, who wears a full beard and has a preference for the girls from officers' brothels. He swears that they are obliged by an army order to wear silk chemises and to bathe before entertaining guests of the rank of major and upwards. And as for the fourth, myself, Paul Bäumer, all 4 are 19 years of age, and all 4 joined up from the same class as volunteers for the war. Close behind us were our friends. Tjaden, a skinny locksmith of our own age, the biggest eater of the company. He sits down to eat as thin as a grasshopper and gets up as big as a bug in the family way. Hyavestus, of the same age, a peat digger, who can easily hold a ration loaf in his hand and say, "Guess what I've got in my fist?" Then Dettring, a peasant, who thinks of nothing but his farmyard and his wife. And finally Stanislaus Kaczynski, the leader of our group, shrewd, cunning, and hard-bitten, 40 years of age, with a face of the soil, blue eyes, bent shoulders, and a remarkable nose for dirty weather, good food, and soft jobs. Our gang formed the head of the queue before the cookhouse. We were growing impatient, for the cook paid no attention to us. Finally Kaczynski called out to him, "Say, Heinrich, open up the soup kitchen. Anyone can see the beans are done." He shook his head sleepily. "You must all be here first." Tjaden grinned. "We are all here." The sergeant cook still took no notice. "That may do for you," he said, "but where are the others?" "They won't be fed by you today. They're either in the dressing station or pushing up daisies." The cook was quite disconcerted as the facts dawned on him. He was staggered. "And I have cooked for 150 men." Kropp poked him in the ribs. "Then for once we'll have enough. Come on, begin." Suddenly a vision came over Tjaden. His sharp, mousy features began to shine, his eyes grew small with cunning, his jaws twitched, and he whispered hoarsely, "Man, then you've got bread for 150 men too, eh?" The sergeant cook nodded absent-minded and bewildered. Tjaden seized him by the tunic. "And sausage?" Ginger nodded again. Tjaden's chaps quivered. "Tobacco too?" "Yes, everything." Tjaden beamed. "What a beanfest! That's all for us. Each man gets— wait a bit. Yes, practically 2 issues." Then Ginger stirred himself and said, "That won't do." Then we got excited and began to crowd around. "Why won't that do, you old carrot?" demanded Kaczynski. 80 men can't have what is meant for 150. "We'll soon show you," growled Muller. "I don't care about the stew, but I can only issue rations for 80 men, persisted Ginger. Kaczynski got angry. "You might be generous for once. You haven't drawn food for 80 men. You've drawn it for the second company. Good. Let's have it then. We are the second company." We began to jostle the fellow. No one felt kindly toward him, for it was his fault that the food twice came up to us in the line too late and cold. Under shell fire, he wouldn't bring his kitchen up near enough, so that our soup carriers had to go much farther than those of the other companies. Now, Boca of the first company is a much better fellow. He is as fat as a hamster in winter, but he trundles his pots when it comes to that right up to the very front line. We were in just the right mood, and there would certainly have been a dust-up if our company commander had not appeared. He informed himself of the dispute and only remarked, "Yes, we did have heavy losses yesterday." He looked in the Dixie. "The beans look good." Ginger nodded. "Cooked with meat and fat." The lieutenant looked at us. He knew what we were thinking, and he knew many other things too, because he came to the company as a non-com and was promoted from the ranks. He lifted the lid from the Dixie again and sniffed. Then, passing on, he said, "Serve out the whole issue. We can do with it, and bring me a plateful too." Ginger looked sheepish as Tjaden danced round him. "It doesn't cost you anything. One would think the quartermaster's store belonged to him. And now get on with it, you old blubber-sticker, and don't you miscount either." "You'll be hanged," spat out Ginger. When things get beyond him, he throws up the sponge altogether. He just goes to pieces. And as if to show that all things were now the same to him, of his own free will he shared out 1/2 pound of synthetic honey equally among us. Today is wonderfully good. The mail has come, and almost every man has a couple of letters and papers. We stroll over to the meadow behind the billets. Kropp has the round lid of a margarine tub under his arm. On the right side of the meadow a large common latrine has been built, a well-planned and durable construction. But that is for recruits who as yet have not learned how to make the most of whatever comes their way. We look for something better. Scattered about everywhere there are separate individual boxes for the same purpose. They are square, neat boxes with wooden sides all round, and have unimpeachably satisfactory seats. On the sides are hand grips enabling one to shift them about. We move 3 together in a ring and sit down comfortably. For 2 hours we have been here without getting up. I well remember how embarrassed we were as recruits in barracks when we had to use the general latrine. There were no doors, and 20 men sat side by side as in a railway carriage, so that they could be reviewed all at one glance, for soldiers must always be under supervision. Since then we have learned better than to be shy about such trifling immodesties. In time things far worse than that came easy to us. Here in the open air, though, the business is entirely a pleasure. I no longer understand why we should always have shied at it before. It is, in fact, just as natural as eating and drinking. We did not properly appreciate these boxes when we first enlisted. They were new to us and did not fill such an important role, but now they have long been a matter of course. The soldier is on friendlier terms than other men with his stomach and intestines. 3/4 of his vocabulary is derived from these regions, and they give an intimate flavor to expressions of his greatest joy as well as of his deepest indignation. It is impossible to express oneself in any other way so clearly and pithily. Our families and our teachers will be shocked when we go home, but here it is the universal language. Enforced publicity has, in our eyes, restored the character of complete innocence to all these things. More than that, they are so much a matter of course that their comfortable performance is fully as much enjoyed as the playing of a safe top-running flush. Not for nothing was the word latrine rumor invented. These places are the regimental gossip shops and common rooms. We feel ourselves for the time being better off than in any palatial white-tiled convenience. There it can only be hygienic. Here it is beautiful. These are wonderfully carefree hours. Over us is the blue sky. On the horizon float the bright yellow, sunlit observation balloons and the many little white clouds of the anti-aircraft shells. Often they rise in a sheaf as they follow after an airman. We hear the muffled rumble of the front only as very distant thunder. Bumblebees droning by quite drown it. Around us stretches the flowery meadow. The grasses sway their tall spears. The white butterflies flutter around and float on the soft, warm wind of the late summer. We read letters and newspapers and smoke. We take off our caps and lay them down beside us. The wind plays with our hair. It plays with our words and thoughts. The 3 boxes stand in the midst of the glowing red field poppies. We set the lid of the margarine tub on our knees and so have a good table for a game of scat. Crop has the cards with him. After every throw-in, the loser pays into the pool. One could sit like this forever. The notes of an accordion float across from the billets. Often we lay aside the cards and look about us. One of us will say, "Well, boys," or "It was a near thing that time," and for a moment we all fall silent. There is in each of us a feeling of constraint. We are all sensible of it. It needs no words to communicate it. It might easily have happened that we should not be sitting here on our boxes today. It came damn near to that. And so everything is new and brave, red poppies and good food, cigarettes and summer breeze. Crop asks, "Anyone see Kemerick lately?" "He's up at St. Joseph's," I tell him. Muller explains that he has a flesh wound in his thigh, a good blighty. We decide to go and see him this afternoon. Crop pulls out a letter. "Cantrick sends you all his best wishes." We laugh. Muller throws his cigarette away and says, "I wish he was here." Cantrick had been our schoolmaster, an active little man in a gray tailcoat, with a face like a shrew mouse. He was about the same size as Corporal Himmelstoss, the terror of Klosterberg. It is very queer that the unhappiness of the world is so often brought on by small men. They are so much more energetic and uncompromising than the big fellows. I have always taken good care to keep out of sections with small company commanders. They are mostly confounded little martinets. During drill time, Cantrick gave us long lectures until the whole of our class went under his shepherding to the district commandant and volunteered. I can see him now, as he used to glare at us through his spectacles and say in a moving voice, "Won't you join up, comrades?" These teachers always carried their feelings ready in their waistcoat pockets and fetched them out at any hour of the day. But we didn't think of that then. There was, indeed, one of us who hesitated and did not want to fall in line. That was Joseph Bäumer, a plump, homely fellow. but he did allow himself to be persuaded, otherwise he would have been ostracized. And perhaps more of us thought as he did, but no one could very well stand out, because at that time even one's parents were ready with the word coward. No one had the vaguest idea what we were in for. The wisest were just the poor and simple people. They knew the war to be a misfortune, whereas people who were better off were beside themselves with joy, though they should have been much better able to judge what the consequences would be. Kaczynski said that was a result of their upbringing. It made them stupid. And what Kat said he had thought about. Strange to say, Bäumer was one of the first to fall. He got hit in the eye during an attack, and we left him lying for dead. We couldn't bring him with us because we had to come back helter-skelter. In the afternoon, suddenly we heard him call, and saw him outside creeping towards us. He had only been knocked unconscious. Because he could not see, and was mad with pain, he failed to keep under cover, and so was shot down before anyone could go and fetch him in. Naturally, we couldn't blame Cantrick for this. Where would the world be if one brought every man to book? There were thousands of Cantricks, all of whom were convinced that there was only one way of doing well, and that way theirs. And that is just why they let us down so badly. For us lads of 18, they ought to have been mediators and guides to the world of maturity, the world of work, of duty, of culture, of progress, to the future. We often made fun of them and played jokes on them, but in our hearts we trusted them. The idea of authority which they represented was associated in our minds with a greater insight and a manlier wisdom. But the first death we saw shattered this belief. We had to recognize that our generation was more to be trusted than theirs. They surpassed us only in phrases and in cleverness. The first bombardment showed us our mistake, and under it the world as they had taught it to us broke in pieces. While they continued to write and talk, we saw the wounded and dying. While they taught that duty to one's country is the greatest thing, we already knew that death throes are stronger. But for all that, we were no mutineers, no deserters, no cowards. They were very free with all these expressions. We loved our country as much as they. We went courageously into every action. But also, we distinguished the false from the true. We had suddenly learned to see. And we saw that there was nothing of their world left. We were all at once terribly alone, and alone we must see it through. Before going over to see Kemmerich, we pack up his things. He will need them on the way back. In the dressing station there is great activity. It reeks as ever of carbolic, ether, and sweat. Most of us are accustomed to this in the billets, but here it makes one feel faint. We ask for Kemmerich. He lies in a large room and receives us with feeble expressions of joy and helpless agitation. While he was unconscious, someone had stolen his watch. Muller shakes his head. "I always told you that nobody should carry as good a watch as that." Muller is rather crude and tactless, otherwise he would hold his tongue, for anybody can see that Kemmerich will never come out of this place again. Whether he finds his watch or not will make no difference. At the most, one will only be able to send it to his people. "How goes it, Franz?" asks Kropp. Kemmerich's head sinks. "Not so bad, but I have such a damned pain in my foot." We look at his bed covering. His leg lies under a wire basket. The bed covering arches over it. I kick Muller on the shin, for he is just about to tell Kemmerich what the orderlies told us outside, that Kemmerich has lost his foot. The leg is amputated. He looks ghastly, yellow, and wan. In his face were already the strained lines that we know so well. We have seen them now hundreds of times. They are not so much lines as marks. Under the skin, the life no longer pulses. It has already pressed out to the boundaries of the body. Death is working through from within. It already has command in the eyes. Here lies our comrade, Kemmerich, who a little while ago was roasting horseflesh with us and squatting in the shell holes. He it is still, and yet it is not he any longer. His features have become uncertain and faint, like a photographic plate on which two pictures have been taken. Even his voice sounds like ashes. I think of the time when we went away. His mother, a good plump matron, brought him to the station. She wept continually, her face was bloated and swollen. Camerick felt embarrassed, for she was the least composed of all. She simply dissolved into fat and water. Then she caught sight of me and took hold of my arm again and implored me to look after Franz out there. Indeed, he did have a face like a child, and such frail bones that after 4 weeks pack-carrying he already had flat feet. But how can a man look after anyone in the field? "Now you will soon be going home," says Kropp. "You would have had to wait at least 3 or 4 months for your leave." Camerick nods. I cannot bear to look at his hands. They are like wax. Under the nails is the dirt of the trenches. It shows through blue-black like poison. It strikes me that these nails will continue to grow like long fantastic cellar plants long after Camerick breathes no more. I see the picture before me. They twist themselves into corkscrews and grow, and with them the hair on the decayed skull, just like grass in a good soil, just like grass. How can it be possible? Muller leans over. "We have brought your things, Franz." Camerick signs with his hand. "Put them under the bed." Muller does so. Camerick starts on again about the watch. How can one calm him without making him suspicious? Muller reappears with a pair of airman's boots. They are fine English boots of soft yellow leather which reach to the knee and lace all the way. They are things to be coveted. Muller is delighted at the sight of them. He matches their soles against his own clumsy boots and says, "Will you be taking them with you then, Franz?" We all three have the same thought. Even if he should get better, he would be able to use only one. They are no use to him. But as things are now, it is a pity that they should stay here. The orderlies will of course grab them as soon as he is dead. "Won't you leave them with us?" Muller repeats. Camerick doesn't want to. They are his most prized possessions. "Well, we could exchange," suggests Muller again. "Out here one can make some use of them." Still Camerick is not to be moved. I tread on Muller's foot. Reluctantly, he puts the fine boots back again under the bed. We talk a little more and then take our leave. "Cheerio, Franz." I promise him to come back in the morning. Muller talks of doing so too. He is thinking of the lace-up boots and means to be on the spot. Camerick groans. He is feverish. We get hold of an orderly outside and ask him to give Camerick a dose of morphia. He refuses. "If we were to give morphia to everyone, we'd have to have tubs full." "You only attend to officers properly," says Kropp viciously. I hastily intervene and give him a cigarette. He takes it. "Are you usually allowed to give it, then?" I ask him. He is annoyed. "If you don't think so, then why do you ask?" I press a couple more cigarettes into his hand. "Do us the favor." "Well, all right," he says. Kropp goes in with him. He doesn't trust him and wants to see. We wait outside. Muller returns to the subject of the boots. "They would fit me perfectly. In these boots I get blister after blister. Do you think he will last till tomorrow after drill? If he passes out in the night, we know where the boots." Kropp returns. "Do you think," he asks. "Done for," says Muller emphatically. We go back to the huts. I think of the letter that I must write tomorrow to Camerick's mother. I am freezing. I could do with a tot of rum. Muller pulls up some grass and chews it. Suddenly, little Kropp throws his cigarette away, stamps on it savagely, and looking round him with a broken and distracted face, stammers, "Damn it, shit! The damned shit!" We walked on for a long time. Kropp has calmed himself. We understand. He sees red. Out here every man gets like that sometime. "What has Cantrick written to you?" Muller asks him. He laughs. "We are the Iron Youth." We all three smile bitterly. Kropp rails. He is glad that he can speak. Yes, that's the way they think, these 100,000 Cantricks. Iron Youth. Youth. We are none of us more than 20 years old. But young? Youth? That is long ago. We are old folk. End of Chapter 1. Chapter 2. Of All Quiet on the Western Front, by Erich Maria Remarque, translated by Arthur Wesley Wheen. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 2. It is strange to think that at home in the drawer of my writing table there lies the beginning of a play called Saul, and a bundle of poems. Many an evening I have worked over them. We all did something of the kind, but that has become so unreal to me that I cannot comprehend it any more. Our early life is cut off from the moment we came here, and that without our lifting a hand. We often try to look back on it and find an explanation, but never quite succeed. For us young men of 20, everything's extraordinarily vague. For Kropp, Muller, Lear, and me, for all of us whom Cantrick calls the Iron Youth. All the older men are linked up with their previous life. They have wives, children, occupations, and interests. They have a background which is so strong that the war cannot obliterate it. We young men of 20, however, have only our parents, and some perhaps a girl. That is not much, for at our age the influence of our parents is at its weakest, and girls have not yet got a hold over us. Besides this, there was little else. Some enthusiasm, a few hobbies, and our school. Beyond this our life did not extend, and of this nothing remains. Cantrick would say that we stood on the threshold of life, and so it would seem. We had as yet taken no root. The war swept us away. For the others, the older men, it is but an interruption. They are able to think beyond it. We, however, have been gripped by it and do not know what the end may be. We know only that in some strange and melancholy way we have become a wasteland. All the same, we are not often sad. Though Muller would be delighted to have Kemrick's boots, he is really quite as sympathetic as another who could not bear to think of such a thing for grief. He merely sees things clearly. Were Kemrick able to make any use of the boots, then Muller would rather go barefoot over barbed wire than scheme how to get hold of them. But as it is, the boots are quite inappropriate to Kemrick's circumstances, whereas Muller can make good use of them. Kemrick will die. It is immaterial who gets them. Why, then, should Muller not succeed to them? He has more right than a hospital orderly. When Kemrick is dead, it will be too late. Therefore, Muller is already on the watch. We have lost all sense of other considerations, because they are artificial. Only the facts are real and important for us, and good boots are scarce. Once it was different. When we went to the district commandant to enlist, we were a class of 20 young men, many of whom proudly shaved for the first time before going to the barracks. We had no definite plans for our future. Our thoughts of a career and occupation were as of yet too unpractical a character to furnish any scheme of life. We were still crammed full of vague ideas which gave to life, and to the war also, an ideal and almost romantic character. We were trained in the army for 10 weeks, and in this time more profoundly influenced than by 10 years at school. We learned that a bright button is weightier than 4 volumes of Schopenhauer. At first astonished, then embittered, and finally indifferent, we recognize that what matters is not the mind, but the boot-brush, not intelligence, but the system, not freedom, but drill. We became soldiers with eagerness and enthusiasm, but they have done everything to knock that out of us. After 3 weeks, it was no longer incomprehensible to us that a braided postman should have more authority over us than had formerly our parents, our teachers, and the whole gamut of culture from Plato to Goethe. With our young, awakened eyes, we saw that the classical conception of the fatherland held by our teachers resolved itself here into a renunciation of personality, such as one would not ask of the meanest servant. Salutes, springing to attention, parade marches, presenting arms, right wheel, left wheel, clicking the heels, insults, and 1,000 pettifogging details. We had fancied our task would be different, only to find we were to be trained for heroism as though we were circus ponies. But we soon accustomed ourselves to it. We learned, in fact, that some part of these things was necessary, but the rest merely show. Soldiers have a fine nose for such distinctions. By 3s and 4s, our class was scattered over the platoons amongst Frisian fishermen, peasants, and laborers with whom we soon made friends. Kropp, Muller, Kemmerich, and I went to No. 9 platoon under Corporal Himmelstoss. He had the reputation of being the strictest disciplinarian in the camp, and was proud of it. He was a small, undersized fellow with a foxy, waxed mustache, who had seen 12 years' service and was in civil life a postman. He had a special dislike for Kropp, Chaden, Vestus, and me because he sensed a quiet defiance. I have remade his bed 14 times in one morning. Each time he had some fault to find and pulled it to pieces. I have kneaded a pair of prehistoric boots that were as hard as iron for 20 hours, with intervals, of course, until they became as soft as butter, and not even Himmelstoss could find anything more to do to them. Under his orders, I have scrubbed out the corporal's mess with a toothbrush. Kropp and I were given the job of clearing the barrack square of snow with a hand broom and a dustpan, and we would have gone on till we were frozen had not a lieutenant accidentally appeared who sent us off, and hauled Himmelstoss over the coals. But the only result of this was to make Himmelstoss hate us more. For 6 weeks consecutively I did guard every Sunday and was hut orderly for the same length of time. With full pack and rifle, I have had to practice on a soft, wet, newly plowed field the "prepare to advance, advance," and the "lie down," until I was one lump of mud and finally collapsed. 4 hours later, I had to report to Himmelstoss with my clothes scrubbed clean, my hands chafed and bleeding. Together with Kropp, Vestus, and Chaden, I have stood at attention in a hard frost without gloves for a quarter of an hour at a stretch, while Himmelstoss watched for the slightest movement of our bare fingers on the steel barrel of the rifle. I have run 8 times from the top floor of the barracks down to the courtyard in my shirt at 2 o'clock in the morning, because my drawers projected 3 inches beyond the edge of the stool on which one had to stack all one's things. Alongside me ran the corporal, Himmelstoss, and trod on my bare toes. At bayonet practice I had constantly to fight with Himmelstoss, I with a heavy iron weapon, whilst he had a handy wooden one with which he easily struck my arms till they were black and blue. Once, indeed, I became so infuriated that I ran at him blindly and gave him a mighty jab in the stomach and knocked him down. When he reported me, the company commander laughed at him and told him he ought to keep his eyes open. He understood Himmelstoss, and apparently was not displeased at his discomfiture. I became a past master on the parallel bars and strove to surpass my instructor at physical jerks. We have trembled at the mere sound of his voice, but this runaway post-horse never got the better of us. One Sunday, as Kropp and I were lugging a latrine bucket on a pole across the barrack yard, Himmelstoss came by, all polished up and spry for going out. He planted himself in front of us and asked how we liked the job. In spite of ourselves, we tripped and emptied the bucket over his legs. He raved, but the limit had been reached. "That means clink," he yelled. But Kropp had had enough. "There'll be an inquiry first," he said, "and then we'll unload." "Mind how you speak to a non-commissioned officer," bawled Himmelstoss. "Have you lost your senses? You wait till you're spoken to. What will you do, anyway?" "Show you up, Corporal," said Kropp, his thumbs in line with the seams of his trousers. Himmelstoss saw what he meant and went off without saying a word. But before he disappeared he growled, "You'll drink this." But it was the end of his authority. He tried it on once more in the ploughed field with his "Prepare to advance, advance," and "Lie down." We obeyed each order, since an order's an order and has to be obeyed. But we did it so slowly that Himmelstoss became desperate. Carefully we went down on our knees, then on our hands, and so on. In the meantime, quite infuriated, he had given another command. But before we had even begun to sweat, he was hoarse. After that, he left us in peace. He did indeed always refer to us as swine, but there was nevertheless a certain respect in his tone. There were many other staff corporals, the majority of whom were more decent. But above all, each of them wanted to keep his good job there at home as long as possible, and that he could do only by being strict with the recruits. Practically every conceivable polishing job in the entire camp fell to us, and we often howled with rage. Many of us became ill through it. Wolf actually died of inflammation of the lung. But we would have felt ridiculous had we hauled down our colors. We had become hard, suspicious, pitiless, vicious, tough, and that was good, for these attributes had been entirely lacking in us. Had we gone into the trenches without this period of training, most of us would certainly have gone mad. Only thus were we prepared for what awaited us. We did not break down, but endured. Our 20 years, which made many another thing so grievous, helped us in this. But by far the most important was that it awakened in us a strong, practical sense of esprit de corps, which in the field developed into the finest thing that arose out of the war, comradeship. I sit by Kemmerich's bed. He is sinking steadily. Around us is a great commotion. A hospital train has arrived, and the wounded fit to be moved are being selected. The doctor passes by Kemmerich's bed without once looking at him. "Next time, Franz," I say. He raises himself on the pillow with his elbows. "They have amputated my leg." He knows it too, then. I nod and answer. "You must be thankful you've come off with that." He is silent. I resume. "It might have been both legs, Franz. Wegler has lost his right arm. That's much worse. Besides, you will be going home." He looks at me. "Do you think so?" "Of course." "Do you think so?" he repeats. "Sure, Franz, once you've got over the operation." He beckons me to bend down. I stoop over him, and he whispers, "I don't think so." "Don't talk rubbish, Franz. In a couple of days you'll see for yourself. What is it, anyway? An amputated leg? Here they patch up far worse things than that." He lifts one hand. "Look here, though, these fingers." "That's the result of the operation. Just eat decently, and you'll soon be well again. Do they look after you properly?" He points to a dish that is still half full. I get excited. "Franz, you must eat. Eating is the main thing. That looks good, too." He turns away. After a pause, he says slowly, "I wanted to become a head forester once." "So you may still," I assured him. "There are splendid artificial limbs now. You'd hardly know there was anything missing. They are fixed onto the muscles. You can move the fingers and work and even write with an artificial hand. And besides, they will always be making new improvements." For a while he lies still. Then he says, "You can take my lace-up boots with you for Muller. I nod and wonder what to say to encourage him. His lips have fallen away, his mouth has become larger, his teeth stick out and look as though they were made of chalk. The flesh melts, the forehead bulges more prominently, the cheekbones protrude. The skeleton is working itself through. The eyes are already sunken in. In a couple of hours it will be over. He is not the first that I have seen thus, but we grew up together, and that always makes it a bit different. I have copied his essays. At school he used to wear a brown coat with a belt and shiny sleeves. He was the only one of us two who could do the giant's turn on the horizontal bar. His hair flew in his face like silk when he did it. Cantorek was proud of him for it, but he couldn't endure cigarettes. His skin was very white. He had something of the girl about him. I glance at my boots. They are big and clumsy. The breeches are tucked into them, and standing up, one looks well-built and powerful in these great drain pipes. But when we go bathing and strip, suddenly we have slender legs again and slight shoulders. We are no longer soldiers, but little more than boys. No one would believe that we could carry packs. It is a strange moment when we stand naked. Then we become civilians, and almost feel ourselves to be so. When bathing, Franz Kemmerich looks as slight and frail as a child. There he lies now. But why? The whole world ought to pass by his bed and say, "That is Franz Kemmerich, 19.5 years old, and he doesn't want to die. Let him not die." My thoughts become confused. This atmosphere of carbolic and gangrene clogs the lungs. It is a thick gruel, and it suffocates. It grows dark. Kemmerich's face changes color. It lifts from the pillow and is so pale that it gleams. The mouth moves slightly. I draw near to him. He whispers, "If you find my watch, send it home." I do not reply. It is no use any more. No one can console him. I am wretched with helplessness. This forehead with its hollow temples, this mouth that is now merely a slit, this sharp nose, and the fat, weeping woman at home to whom I must write. If only the letter were sent off already. Hospital orderlies go to and fro with bottles and pails. One of them comes up, casts a glance at Kemmerich, and goes away again. You can see he is waiting. Apparently, he wants the bed. I bend over Franz and talk to him as though that could save him. "Perhaps you will go to the convalescent home at Klosterberg, among the villas, Franz. Then you can look out from the window across the fields to the 2 trees on the horizon. It is the loveliest time of the year now, when the corn ripens. At evening, the fields in the sunlight look like mother of pearl. And the lane of poplars by the Klosterbach, where we used to catch sticklebacks. You can build an aquarium again and keep fish in it, and you can go out without asking anyone. You can even play the piano if you want to." I lean down over his face, which lies in the shadow. He still breathes lightly. His face is wet. He is crying. What a fine mess I have made of it with my foolish talk. "But, Franz," I put my arm round his shoulder and put my face against his, "will you sleep now?" He does not answer. The tears run down his cheeks. I would like to wipe them away, but my handkerchief is too dirty. An hour passes. I sit tensely and watch his every movement in case he may perhaps say something. What if he were to open his mouth and cry out? But he only weeps, his head turned aside. He does not speak of his mother or his brothers and sisters. He says nothing. All that lies behind him. He is entirely alone now with his little life of 19 years and cries because it leaves him. This is the most disturbing and hardest parting that ever I have seen, although it was pretty bad too with Tidjan, who called for his mother. A big bear of a fellow, who, with wild eyes full of terror, held off the doctor from his bed with a dagger until he collapsed. Suddenly, Kemrick groans and begins to gurgle. I jump up, stumble outside, and demand, "Where's the doctor? Where's the doctor?" As I catch sight of the white apron, I seize hold of it. "Come quick, Franz Kemrick is dying." He frees himself and asks an orderly standing by, "Which will that be?" He says, "Bed 26, amputated thigh." He sniffs. "How should I know anything about it? I've amputated 5 legs today." He shoves me away, says to the hospital orderly, "You see to it," and runs off to the operating room. I tremble with rage as I go along with the orderly. The man looks at me and says, "One operation after another since 5 o'clock this morning. You know today alone there have been 16 deaths. Yours is the 17th. There will probably be 20 altogether." I become faint. All at once I cannot do any more. I don't revile any more. It is senseless. I could drop down and never rise up again. We are by Kemrick's bed. He is dead. The face is still wet from the tears. The eyes are half open and yellow like old horn buttons. The orderly pokes me in the ribs. "Are you taking his things with you?" I nod. He goes on, "We must take him away at once. We want the bed. Outside, they are lying on the floor." I collect the things, untie Kemrick's identification disc, and take it away. The orderly asks about the pay book. I say that it is probably in the orderly room and go. Behind me, they are already hauling Franz onto a waterproof sheet. Outside the door, I am aware of the darkness and the wind as a deliverance. I breathe as deep as I can and feel the breeze in my face, warm and soft as never before. Thoughts of girls, of flowery meadows, of white clouds suddenly come into my head. My feet begin to move forward in my boots. I go quicker. I run. Soldiers pass by me. I hear their voices without understanding. The earth is streaming with forces which pour into me through the soles of my feet. The night crackles electrically. The front thunders like a concert of drums. My limbs move supply. I feel my joints strong. I breathe the air deeply. The night lives. I live. I feel a hunger, greater than comes from the belly alone. Muller stands in front of the hut and waits for me. I give him the boots. We go in, and he tries them on. They fit well. He roots among his supplies and offers me a fine piece of saveloy. With it goes hot tea and rum. End of Chapter 2. Chapter 3 of All Quiet on the Western Front by Erich Maria Remarque, translated by Arthur Wesley Wien. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 3. Reinforcements have arrived. The vacancies have been filled, and the sacks of straw are already laid out in the huts. Some of them are old hands, but there are 25 men of a later draft from the base. They are about 2 years younger than us. Kropp nudges me. "Seen the infants?" I nod. We stick out our chests, shave in the open, shove our hands in our pockets, inspect the recruits, and feel ourselves to be Stone Age veterans. Kaczynski joins us. We stroll past the horse boxes and go over to the reinforcements, who have already been issued with gas masks and coffee. "Long time since you've had anything decent to eat, eh?" Cat asks one of the youngsters. He grimaces. "For breakfast, turnip bread. Lunch, turnip stew. Supper, turnip cutlets and turnip salad." Cat gives a knowing whistle. "Bread made of turnips? You've been in luck. It's nothing new for it to be made of sawdust. But what do you say to haricot beans? Have some?" The youngster turns red. "You can't kid me." Kaczynski merely says, "Fetch your mess tin." We follow curiously. He takes us to a tub beside his straw sack. It is nearly half full of a stew of beef and beans. Kaczynski plants himself in front of it like a general and says, "Sharp eyes and light fingers. That's what the Prussians say." We are surprised. "Great guts, Cat. How did you come by that?" I ask him. "Ginger was glad I took it. I gave him 3 pieces of parachute silk for it. Cold beans taste fine, too." Grudgingly, he gives the youngster a portion and says, "Next time you come with your mess tin, have a cigar or a chew of tobacco in your other hand. Get me?" Then he turns to us. "You get off scot-free, of course." Kaczynski never goes short. He has a sixth sense. There are such people everywhere, but one does not appreciate it at first. Every company has one or two. Kaczynski is the smartest I know. By trade he is a cobbler, I believe, but that hasn't anything to do with it. He understands all trades. It's a good thing to be friends with him, as Kropp and I are, and Haya Vestas too, more or less. But Haya is rather the executive arm operating under Kat's orders when things come to blows. For that he has his qualifications. For example, we land at night in some entirely unknown spot, a sorry hole that has been eaten out to the very walls. We are quartered in a small dark factory adapted to the purpose. There are beds in it, or rather bunks, a couple of wooden beams over which wire netting is stretched. Wire netting is hard, and there's nothing to put on it. Our waterproof sheets are too thin. We use our blankets to cover ourselves. Kat looks at the place and then says to Haya Vestas, "Come with me." They go off to explore. Half an hour later they are back again with arms full of straw. Kat has found a horse box with straw in it. Now we might sleep if we weren't so terribly hungry. Kropp asks an artilleryman who has been some time in this neighborhood, "Is there a canteen anywhereabouts?" "Is there a what?" he laughs. "There's nothing to be had here. You won't find so much as a crust of bread here." "Aren't there any inhabitants here at all, then?" He spits. "Yes, a couple, but they mostly loaf around the cookhouse and beg." "That's a bad business. Then we'll have to pull in our belts and wait till the rations come up in the morning." But I see Cat has put on his cap. "Where to, Cat?" I ask. "Just to explore the place a bit." He strolls off. The artilleryman grins scornfully. "Let him explore, but don't be too hopeful about it." Disappointed, we lie down and consider whether we couldn't have a go at the iron rations. But it's too risky, so we try to get a wink of sleep. Kropp divides a cigarette and hands me half. Tjaden gives an account of his national dish, broad beans and bacon. He despises it when not flavored with bog myrtle, and, for God's sake, let it all be cooked together, not the potatoes, the beans, and the bacon separately. Someone growls that he will pound Tjaden into bog myrtle if he doesn't shut up. Then all becomes quiet in the big room, only the candles flickering from the necks of a couple of bottles and the artilleryman spitting every now and then. We stir a bit as the door opens and Cat appears. I think I must be dreaming. He has 2 loaves of bread under his arm and a blood-stained sandbag full of horseflesh in his hand. The artilleryman's pipe drops from his mouth. He feels the bread. Real bread, by God, and still hot, too. Cat gives no explanation. He has the bread, the rest doesn't matter. I'm sure that if he were planted down in the middle of the desert, in half an hour he would have gathered together a supper of roast meat, dates, and wine. "Cut some wood," he says curtly to Haya. Then he hauls out a frying pan from under his coat and a handful of salt as well as a lump of fat from his pocket. He has thought of everything. Haya makes a fire on the floor. It lights up the empty room of the factory. We climb out of bed. The artilleryman hesitates. He wonders whether to praise Cat, and so perhaps gain a little for himself. But Kaczynski doesn't even see him. He might as well be thin air. He goes off cursing. Cat knows the way to roast horseflesh so that it's tender. It shouldn't be put straight into the pan, that makes it tough. It should be boiled first in a little water. With our knives we squat round in a circle and fill our bellies. That is cat. If for but 1 hour in a year something eatable were to be had in some one place only, within that hour, as if moved by a vision, he would put on his cap, go out and walk directly there, as though following a compass, and find it. He finds everything. If it's cold, a small stove and wood, hay and straw, a table and chairs, but above all, food. It is uncanny. One would think he conjured it out of the air. His masterpiece was 4 boxes of lobsters. Admittedly, we would rather have had a good beefsteak. We have settled ourselves on the sunny side of the hut. There is a smell of tar, of summer, and of sweaty feet. Cat sits beside me. He wants to talk. Today we have been practicing saluting because Tjaden failed to salute a major. Cat can't get it out of his head. You see, we are losing the war because we can salute too well, he says. Krop stalks up, with his breeches rolled up and his feet bare. He lays out his washed socks to dry on the grass. Cat turns his eyes to heaven, lets off a mighty fart, and says apologetically, "Every little bean must be heard as well as seen." The two begin to argue. At the same time, they lay a bottle of beer on the result of an air fight that's going on above us. Kaczynski won't budge from the opinion, which, as an old front hog, he rhymes, "Give 'em all the same grub and all the same pay, and the war would be over and done in a day." Krop, on the other hand, is a thinker. He proposes that a declaration of war should be a kind of popular festival with entrance tickets and bands, like a bullfight. Then in the arena the ministers and generals of the 2 countries, dressed in bathing drawers and armed with clubs, can have it out among themselves. Whoever survives, his country wins. That would be much simpler and more just than this arrangement, where the wrong people do the fighting. The subject is dropped. Then the conversation turns to drill. A picture comes before me. Burning midday in the barrack yard. The heat hangs over the square. The barracks are deserted. Everything sleeps. All one hears is the drummers practicing. They have installed themselves anywhere and practice brokenly, dully, monotonously. What a concord! Midday heat, barrack square, and drummers beating. The windows of the barracks are empty and dark. From some of them trousers are hanging to dry. The rooms are cool, and one looks toward them longingly. Oh, dark, musty platoon huts, with the iron bedsteads, the checkered bedding, the lockers and the stools. Even you can become the object of desire. Out here you have a faint resemblance to home. Your rooms, full of the smell of stale food, sleep, smoke, and clothes. Kaczynski paints it all in lively colors. What would we not give to be able to go back to it? But we must not pursue that line of thought any further. Those early morning hours of instruction. What are the parts of the 98 rifle? The midday hours of physical training. Pianist, forward. By the right, quick march. Report to the cookhouse for potato peeling. We indulge in reminiscences. Krop laughs suddenly and says, "Change at Luna." That was our corporal's favorite game. Luna is a railway junction. In order that our fellows going on leave shouldn't get lost there, Himmelstas used to practice the change in the barrack room. We had to learn that at Luna, to reach the branch line, we must pass through a subway. The beds represented the subway, and each man stood at attention on the left side of his bed. Then came the command, "Change at Luna," and like lightning everyone scrambled under the bed to the opposite side. We practiced this for a whole hour. Meanwhile, the German aeroplane has been shot down. Like a comet, it bursts into a streamer of smoke and falls headlong. Krop has lost the bottle of beer. Disgruntled, he counts out the money from his wallet. Surely Himmelstas was a very different fellow as a postman, say I, after Albert's disappointment has subsided. then how does it come that he's such a bully as a drill sergeant?" The question revives Kropp, more particularly as he hears there's no more beer in the canteen. "It's not only Himmelsdoss, there are lots of them. As sure as they get a stripe or a star, they become different men, just as though they'd swallowed concrete." "That's the uniform," I suggest. "Roughly speaking, it is," says Cat, and prepares for a long speech. "But the root of the matter lies elsewhere. For instance, if you train a dog to eat potatoes, and then afterwards put a piece of meat in front of him, he'll snap at it. It's his nature. And if you give a man a little bit of authority, he behaves just the same way. He snaps at it too. The things are precisely the same. In himself, man is essentially a beast, only he butters it over like a slice of bread with a little decorum. The army is based on that. One man must always have power over the other. The mischief is merely that each one has much too much power. A non-com can torment a private, a lieutenant a non-com, a captain a lieutenant, until he goes mad. And because they know they can, they all soon acquire the habit, more or less. Take a simple case. We are marching back from the parade ground dog-tired. Then comes the order to sing. We are glad enough to be able to trail arms, but we sing spiritlessly. At once the company is turned about and has to do another hour's drill as punishment. On the march back, the order to sing is given again, and once more we start. Now what's the use of all that? It's simply that the company commander's head has been turned by having so much power, and nobody blames him. On the contrary, he is praised for being strict. That, of course, is only a trifling instance, but it holds also in very different affairs. Now, I ask you, let a man be whatever you like in peacetime. What occupation is there in which he can behave like that without getting a crack on the nose? He can only do that in the army. It goes to the heads of all of them, you see. And the more insignificant a man has been in civil life, the worse it takes him." "They say, of course, there must be discipline," ventures Kropp meditatively. "True," growls Cat, "they always do. And it may be so. Still, it ought to become an abuse. But you try to explain that to a blacksmith or a laborer or workman, you try to make that clear to a simple Tommy, and that's what most of them are here. All he understands is that he has been properly trained so that when he comes up to the front, he thinks he knows exactly what he should do in every circumstances and what not. It's simply amazing, I tell you, that the ordinary soldier survives so long up here in the front line. Simply amazing." No one protests. Everyone knows that drill ceases only in the front line and begins again a few miles behind, with all the absurdities of saluting and parade. It is an iron law that the soldier must be employed under every circumstance. Here Tjaden comes up with a flushed face. He is so excited that he stutters. Beaming with satisfaction, he stammers out, "Himmelsdoss is on his way. He's coming to the front." Tjaden has a special grudge against Himmelsdoss because of the way he educated him in the barracks. Tjaden wets his bed. He does it at night in his sleep. Himmelsdoss maintained that it was sheer laziness, and invented a method worthy of himself for curing Tjaden. He hunted up another pissabed named Kindervater from a neighboring hut and quartered him with Tjaden. In the huts there were the usual bunks, one above the other in pairs, the mattresses of wire netting. Himmelsdoss put these two so that one occupied the upper and the other the lower bunk. The man underneath was, of course, disgusted. The next night they were changed over and the lower one put on top so that he could retaliate. That was Himmelsdoss's system of self-education. The idea was low but not ill-conceived. Unfortunately, it accomplished nothing because the first assumption was wrong. It was not laziness in either of them. Anyone who looked at their sallow skin could see that. The matter ended in one of them always sleeping on the floor, where he frequently caught cold. Meanwhile, Hyas sits down beside us. He winks at me and rubs his paws thoughtfully. "We once spent the finest day of our army life together, the day before we left for the front. We had been allotted to one of the recently formed regiments, but were first to be sent back for equipment to the garrison, not to the reinforcement depot, of course, but to another barracks. We were due to leave next morning early. In the evening, we prepared ourselves to square accounts with Himmelstoss. We had sworn for weeks past to do this. Kropp had even gone so far as to propose entering the postal service in peacetime in order to be Himmelstoss's superior when he became a postman again. He reveled in the thought of how he would grind him. It was this that made it impossible for him to crush us altogether. We always reckoned that later, at the end of the war, we would have our revenge on him. In the meantime, we decided to give him a good hiding. What could he do to us anyhow if he didn't recognize us and we left early the next morning? We knew which pub he used to visit every evening. Returning to the barracks, he had to go along a dark, uninhabited road. There we waited for him behind a pile of stones. I had a bed cover with me. We trembled with suspense, hoping he would be alone. At last we heard his footstep, which we recognized easily, so often had we heard it in the mornings as the door flew open and he bawled, "Get up!" "Alone?" whispered Kropp. "Alone." I slipped round the pile of stones with Tjaden. Himmelstoss seemed a little elevated. He was singing. His belt buckle gleamed. He came on unsuspectingly. We seized the bed cover, made a quick leap, threw it over his head from behind, and pulled it round him so that he stood there in a white sack, unable to raise his arms. The singing stopped. The next moment Hyavistus was there, and spreading out his arms, he shoved us back in order to be first in. He put himself in position with evident satisfaction, raised his arm like a signal mast and his hand like a coal shovel, and fetched such a blow on the white sack as would have felled an ox. Himmelstoss was thrown down. He rolled 5 yards and started to yell. But we were prepared for that, and had brought a cushion. Hyas squatted down, laid the cushion on his knees, felt where Himmelstoss's head was, and pressed it down on the pillow. Immediately his voice was muffled. Hya let him get a gasp of air every so often, when he would give a mighty yell that was immediately hushed. Tjaden unbuttoned Himmelstoss's braces and pulled down his trousers, holding the whip meantime in his teeth. Then he stood up and set to work. It was a wonderful picture. Himmelstoss on the ground, Hya bending over him with a fiendish grin and his mouth open with bloodlust, Himmelstoss's head on his knees. Then the convulsed, striped drawers, the knock-knees, executing at every blow most original movements in the lower breeches, and towering over them like a woodcutter the indefatigable Tjaden. In the end, we had to drag him away to get our turn. Finally, Hya stood Himmelstoss on his feet again and gave one last personal remonstrance. As he stretched out his right arm preparatory to give him a box on the ear, he looked as if he were going to reach down a star. Himmelstoss staggered. Hya stood him up again, made ready, and fetched him a second, well-aimed beauty with the left hand. Himmelstoss yelled and fell down on all fours, cursing. His striped postman's backside gleamed in the moonlight. We disappeared at full speed. Hya looked round once again and said, wrathfully, satisfied and rather mysteriously, "Revenge is black pudding." Himmelstoss ought to have been pleased. His saying that we should each educate one another had borne fruit for himself. We had become successful students of his method. He never discovered whom he had to thank for the business. At any rate, he scored a bed cover out of it, for when we returned a few hours later to look for it, it was no longer to be found. That evening's work made us more or less content to leave next morning, and an old buffer was pleased to describe us as young heroes. End of Chapter 3. Chapter 4. Of All Quiet on the Western Front, by Erich Maria Remarque, translated by Arthur Wesley Wheen. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Chapter 4. We have to go up on wiring fatigue. The motor lorries roll up after dark. We climb in. It is a warm evening, and the twilight seems like a canopy under whose shelter we feel drawn together. Even the stingy Chawton gives me a cigarette and then a light. We stand jammed in together, shoulder to shoulder. There is no room to sit, but we do not expect that. Muller is in a good mood for once. He is wearing his new boots. The engines drone, the lorries bump and rattle. The roads are worn and full of holes. We dare not show a light, so we lurch along and are often almost pitched out. That does not worry us, however. It can happen if it likes. A broken arm is better than a hole in the guts, and many a man would be thankful enough for such a chance of finding his way home again. Beside us stream the munition columns in long files. They are making the pace. They overtake us going forward. We joke with them, and they answer back. A wall becomes visible. It belongs to a house which lies on the side of the road. I suddenly prick up my ears. Am I deceived? Again I hear distinctly the cackle of geese. A glance at Kaczynski, a glance from him to me. We understand one another. Cat, I hear some aspirants for the frying pan over there. He nods. It will be attended to when we come back. I have their number. Of course Cat has their number. He knows all about every leg of goose within a radius of 15 miles. The lorries arrive at the artillery lines. The gun emplacements are camouflaged with bushes against aerial observation, and look like a kind of military feast of the tabernacles. These branches might seem gay and cheerful were not cannon embowered there. The air becomes acrid with the smoke of the guns and the fog. The fumes of powder taste bitter on the tongue. The roar of the guns makes our lorry stagger. The reverberation rolls raging away to the rear. Everything quakes. Our faces change imperceptibly. We are not indeed in the front line, but only in the reserves. Yet in every face can be read, "This is the front. Now we are within its embrace." It is not fear. Men who have been up as often as we have become thick-skinned. Only the young recruits are agitated. Cat explains to them, "That was a 12-inch. You hear the explosion first, and afterwards comes the sound of the gun." But the hollow sound of the firing does not reach us. It is swallowed up in the general murmur of the front. Cat listens. "There'll be a bombardment tonight." We all listen. The front is restless. "The Tommies are firing already," says Kropp. The shelling can be heard distinctly. It is the English batteries to the right of our section. They are beginning an hour too soon. According to us, they start punctually at 10 o'clock. "What's got them?" says Muller. "Their clocks must be fast." "There'll be a bombardment, I tell you. I can feel it in my bones." Cat shrugs his shoulders. 3 shells land beside us. The burst of flame shoots across the fog. The fragments howl and drone. We shiver and are glad to think that we shall be back in the huts early in the morning. Our faces are neither paler nor more flushed than usual. They are not more tense nor more flabby, and yet they are changed. We feel that in our blood a contact is shot home. That is no figure of speech. It is fact. It is the front, the consciousness of the front, that makes this contact. The moment that the first shells whistle over and the air is rent with the explosions, there is suddenly in our veins, in our hands, in our eyes, a tense waiting, a watching, a heightened alertness, a strange sharpening of the senses. The body with one bound is in full readiness. It often seems to me as though it were the vibrating, shuddering air that with a noiseless leap springs upon us, or as though the front itself emitted an electric current which awakened unknown nerve centers. Every time it is the same. We start out for the front plain soldiers, either cheerful or gloomy. Then come the first gun emplacements, and every word of our speech has a new ring. When Cat stands in front of the hut and says, "There'll be a bombardment," That is merely his own opinion. But if he says it here, then the sentence has the sharpness of a bayonet in the moonlight. It cuts clean through the thought. It thrusts nearer and speaks to this unknown thing that is awakened in us, a dark meaning. There'll be a bombardment. Perhaps it is our inner and most secret life that shivers and falls on guard. To me, the front is a mysterious whirlpool. Though I am in still water far away from its center, I feel the whirl of the vortex sucking me slowly, irresistibly, inescapably into itself. From the earth, from the air, sustaining forces pour into us, mostly from the earth. To no man does the earth mean so much as to the soldier. When he presses himself down upon her long and powerfully, when he buries his face and his limbs deep in her from the fear of death by shell fire, then she is his only friend, his brother, his mother. He stifles his terror and his cries in her silence and her security. She shelters him and gives him a new lease of 10 seconds of life, receives him again and often forever. Earth, earth, earth. Earth, with thy folds, hollows, and holes, into which a man may fling himself and crouch down. In the spasm of terror, under the hailing of annihilation, in the bellowing death of the explosions, O earth, thou grantest us the great resisting surge of new-won life. Our being, almost utterly carried away by the fury of the storm, streams back through our hands from thee, and we, thy redeemed ones, bury ourselves in thee, and through the long minutes in a mute agony of hope bite into thee with our lips. At the sound of the first droning of the shells we rush back, in one part of our being 1,000 years. By the animal instinct that is awakened in us we are led and protected. It is not conscious. It is far quicker, much more sure, less fallible than consciousness. One cannot explain it. A man is walking along without thought or heed. Suddenly he throws himself down on the ground, and a storm of fragments fly harmlessly over him. Yet he cannot remember either to have heard the shell coming or to have thought of flinging himself down. But had he not abandoned himself to the impulse, he would now be a heap of mangled flesh. It is this other, this second sight in us, that has thrown us to the ground and saved us, without our knowing how. If it were not so, there would not be one man alive from Flanders to the Vosges. We march up, moody or good-tempered soldiers. We reach the zone where the front begins and become on the instant human animals. An indigent-looking wood receives us. We pass by the soup kitchens. Under cover of the wood we climb out. The lorries turn back. They are to collect us again in the morning before dawn. Mist and the smoke of guns lie breast-high over the fields. The moon is shining. Along the road troops file. Their helmets gleam softly in the moonlight. The heads and the rifles stand out above the white mist, nodding heads, rocking carriers of guns. Farther on the mist ends. Here the heads become figures. Coats, trousers, and boots appear out of the mist as from a milky pool. They become a column. The column marches on, straight ahead. The figures resolve themselves into a block. Individuals are no longer recognizable. The dark wedge presses onward, fantastically topped by the heads and weapons floating off on the milky pool. A column, not men at all. Guns and munitions wagons are moving along a crossroad. The backs of the horses shine in the moonlight. Their movements are beautiful. They toss their heads, and their eyes gleam. The guns and the wagons float before the dim background of the moonlit landscape. The riders in their steel helmets resemble knights of a forgotten time. It is strangely beautiful and arresting. We push on to the pioneer dump. Some of us load our shoulders with pointed and twisted iron stakes. Others thrust smooth iron rods through rolls of wire and go off with them. The burdens are awkward and heavy. The ground becomes more broken. From ahead come warnings. Look out, deep shell hole on the left. Mind, trenches. Our eyes peer out. Our feet and our sticks feel in front of us before they take the weight of the body. Suddenly, the line halts. I bump my face against the roll of wire carried by the man in front and curse. There are some shell-smashed lorries in the road. Another order. Cigarettes and pipes out. We are getting near the line. In the meantime, it has become pitch dark. We skirt a small wood and then have the front line immediately before us. An uncertain red glow spreads along the skyline from one end to the other. It is in perpetual movement, punctuated with the bursts of flame from the muzzles of the batteries. Balls of light rise up high above it, silver and red spheres which explode and rain down in showers of red, white, and green stars. French rockets go up, which unfold a silk parachute to the air and drift slowly down. They light up everything as bright as day. Their light shines on us, and we see our shadows sharply outlined on the ground. They hover for the space of a minute before they burn out. Immediately, fresh ones shoot up to the sky, and again green, red, and blue stars. "Bombardment," says Cat. The thunder of the guns swells to a single heavy roar, and then breaks up again into separate explosions. The dry bursts of the machine guns rattle. Above us the air teems with invisible swift movement, with howls, pipings, and hisses. They are the smaller shells, and amongst them, booming through the night like an organ, go the great coal boxes and the heavies. They have a hoarse, distant bellow like a rutting stag and make their way high above the howl and whistle of the smaller shells. It reminds me of flocks of wild geese when I hear them. Last autumn the wild geese flew day after day across the path of the shells. The searchlights begin to sweep the dark sky. They slide along it like gigantic tapering rulers. One of them pauses and quivers a little. Immediately a second is beside him. A black insect is caught between them and tries to escape. An airman. He hesitates, is blinded, and falls. At regular intervals we ram in the iron stakes. 2 men hold a roll and the others spool off the barbed wire. It is that awful stuff with close-set, long spikes. I am not used to unrolling it and tear my hand. After a few hours it is done. But there is still some time before the lorries come. Most of us lie down and sleep. I try also, but it has turned too chilly. Near to the sea, one is constantly waked by the cold. Once I fall fast asleep. Then, waking suddenly with a start, I do not know where I am. I see the stars, I see the rockets, and for a moment have the impression that I have fallen asleep at a garden fete. I don't know whether it is morning or evening. I lie in the pale cradle of the twilight and listen for soft words which will come, soft and near. Am I crying? I put my hand to my eyes. It is so fantastic. Am I a child? Smooth skin. It lasts only a second, and then I recognize the silhouette of Kaczynski. The old veteran, he sits quietly and smokes his pipe, a covered pipe, of course. When he sees I am awake, he says, "That will give you a fright. It was only a nose-cap. It landed in the bushes over there." I sit up. I feel myself strangely alone. It's good Cat is there. He gazes thoughtfully at the front and says, "Mighty fine fireworks, if they weren't so dangerous." One lands behind us. 2 recruits jump up, terrified. A couple of minutes later, another comes over, nearer this time. Cat knocks out his pipe. It makes a glow. Then it begins in earnest. We crawl away as well as we can in our haste. The next lands fair among us. 2 fellows cry out. Green rockets shoot up on the skyline. Barrage. The mud flies high, fragments whiz past. The crack of the guns is heard long after the roar of the explosions. Beside us lies a fair-headed recruit in utter terror. He has buried his face in his hands. His helmet has fallen off. I fish hold of it and try to put it back on his head. He looks up, pushes the helmet off, and like a child creeps under my arm, his head close to my breast. The little shoulders heave, shoulders just like Kemmerich's. I let him be. So that the helmet should be of some use, I stick it on his behind, not for a jest, but out of consideration, since that is his highest part. And though there is plenty of meat there, a shot in it can be damned painful. Besides, a man has to lie a whole month on his belly in the hospital, and afterwards he would be almost sure to have a limp. It's got someone pretty badly. Cries are heard between the explosions. At last it grows quiet. The fire has lifted over us and is now dropping on the reserves. We risk a look. Red rockets shoot up to the sky. Apparently, there's an attack coming. Where we sit, it is still quiet. I sit up and shake the recruit by the shoulder. "All over, kid. It's all right this time." He looks round him dazedly. "You'll get used to it soon," I tell him. He sees his helmet and puts it on. Gradually he comes to. Then suddenly he turns fiery red and looks confused. Cautiously he reaches his hand to his behind and looks at me dismally. I understand at once. Gun-shy. That wasn't the reason I had stuck his helmet over it. "That's no disgrace," I reassure him. "Many's the man before you has had his pants full after the first bombardment. Go behind that bush there and throw your underpants away. Get along." He goes off. Things become quieter, but the cries do not cease. "What's up, Albert?" I ask. "Couple of columns over there have got it in the neck." The cries continue. It is not men. They could not cry so terribly. "Wounded horses," said Cat. It's unendurable. It is the moaning of the world. It is the martyred creation, wild with anguish, filled with terror and groaning. We are pale. Datering stands up. "God, for God's sake, shoot them!" He is a farmer and very fond of horses. It gets under his skin. Then, as if deliberately, the fire dies down again. The screaming of the beasts becomes louder. One can no longer distinguish whence in this now quiet silver landscape it comes. Ghostly, invisible, it is everywhere. Between heaven and earth it rolls on immeasurably. Datering raves and yells out, "Shoot them! Shoot them, can't you? Damn you again!" "They must look after the men first," says Cat quietly. We stand up and try to see where it is. If we could only see the animals, we should be able to endure it better. Muller has a pair of glasses. We see a dark group, bearers with stretchers and large black clumps moving about. Those are the wounded horses. But not all of them. Some gallop away in the distance, fall down, and then run on farther. The belly of one is ripped open, the guts trail out. He becomes tangled in them and falls. Then he stands up again. Datering raises his gun and aims. Cat hits it up in the air. "Are you mad?" Datering trembles and throws his rifle on the ground. We sit down and hold our ears. But this appalling noise, these groans and screams penetrate. They penetrate everywhere. We can bear almost anything. But now the sweat breaks out on us. We must get up and run, no matter where, but where these cries can no longer be heard. And it is not men, only horses. From the dark group, stretchers move off again. Then single shots crack out. The black heap is convulsed and becomes thinner. At last, but still it is not the end. The men cannot overtake the wounded beasts, which fly in their pain, their wide-open mouths full of anguish. One of the men goes down on his knee, a shot. One horse drops, another. The last one props himself on his forelegs and drags himself round in a circle like a merry-go-round. Squatting, it drags round in circles on its stiffened forelegs. Apparently, its back is broken. The soldier runs up and shoots it. Slowly, humbly, it sinks to the ground. We take our hands from our ears. The cries are silenced. Only a long-drawn, dying sigh still hangs on the air. Then again, only the rockets, the singing of the shells and the stars, and they shine out wonderfully. Datering walks up and down, cursing. Like to know what harm they've done. He returns to it once again. His voice is agitated. It sounds almost dignified as he says, I tell you, it is the vilest baseness to use horses in the war. We go back. It is time we return to the lorries. The sky is becoming a bit brighter. 3 o'clock in the morning. The breeze is fresh and cool. The pale hour makes our faces look gray. We trudge onward in a single file through the trenches and shell holes and come again to the zone of mist. Kaczynski is restive. That's a bad sign. What's up, Cat? Says Kropp. I wish I were back home. Home, he means the huts. It won't last much longer, Cat. He is nervous. I don't know. We come to the communications trench and then to the open fields. The little wood reappears. We know every foot of ground here. There's the cemetery with the mounds and the black crosses. That moment it breaks out behind us, swells, roars, and thunders. We duck down. A cloud of flame shoots up 100 yards ahead of us. The next minute, under a second explosion, part of the wood rises slowly in the air. 3 or 4 trees sail up and then crash to pieces. The shells begin to hiss like safety valves. Heavy fire. "Take cover!" yells somebody. "Cover!" The fields are flat. The wood is too distant and dangerous. The only cover is the graveyard and the mounds. We stumble across in the dark, and as though spirited away, every man lies glued behind a mound. Not a moment too soon. The dark goes mad. It heaves and raves. Darknesses blacker than the night rush on us with giant strides, over us and away. The flames of the explosions light up the graveyard. There is no escape anywhere. By the light of the shells, I try to get a view of the fields. They are a surging sea. Daggers of flame from the explosions leap up like fountains. It is impossible for anyone to break through it. The wood vanishes. It is pounded, crushed, torn to pieces. We must stay here in the graveyard. The earth bursts before us. It rains clods. I feel a smack. My sleeve is torn away by a splinter. I shut my fist. No pain. Still, that does not reassure me. Wounds don't hurt till afterwards. I feel the arm all over. It is grazed but sound. Now a crack on the skull. I begin to lose consciousness. Like lightning, the thought comes to me, don't faint. Sink down in the black broth and immediately come up to the top again. A splinter slashes into my helmet, but has traveled so far that it does not go through. I wipe the mud out of my eyes. A hole is torn up in front of me. Shells hardly ever land in the same hole twice. I'll get into it. With one bound, I fling myself down and lie on the earth as flat as a fish. There it whistles again. Quickly, I crouch together, claw for cover, feel something on the left, shove in beside it. It gives way. I groan. The earth leaps. The blast thunders in my ears. I creep under the yielding thing, cover myself with it, draw it over me. It is wood, cloth. Cover, miserable cover against the whizzing splinters. I open my eyes. My fingers grasp a sleeve, an arm. A wounded man? I yell to him. No answer. A dead man. My hand gropes farther. Splinters of wood. Now I remember again that we are lying in the graveyard. But the shelling is stronger than everything. It wipes out the sensibilities. I merely crawl still deeper into the coffin. It should protect me, and especially as death himself lies in it too. Before me gapes the shell hole. I grasp it with my eyes as with fists. With one leap I must be in it. There I get a smack in the face. A hand clamps onto my shoulder. Has the dead man waked up? The hand shakes me. I turn my head. In the second of light I stare into the face of Kaczynski. He has his mouth wide open and is yelling. I hear nothing. He rattles me, comes nearer. In a momentary lull his voice reaches me. "Gas! Gas! Gas! Pass it on!" I grab for my gas mask. Some distance from me there lies someone. I think of nothing but this. That fellow there must know. "Gas! Gas!" I call. I lean toward him. I sweep at him with the satchel. He doesn't see. Once again. He merely ducks. It's a recruit. I look at Cat desperately. He has his mask ready. I pull out mine too. My helmet falls to one side. It slips over my face. I reach the man. His satchel is on the side nearest me. I seize the mask, pull it over his head. He understands. I let go and with a jump drop back into the shell hole. The dull thud of the gas shells mingles with the crashes of the high explosives. A bell sounds between the explosions, gongs and metal clappers warning everyone, "Gas! Gas! Gas!" Someone plumps down behind me, another. I wipe the goggles of my mask clear of the moist breath. It is Cat, Crop, and someone else. All four of us lie there in heavy, watchful suspense and breathe as lightly as possible. These first minutes with the mask decide between life and death. Is it tightly woven? I remember the awful sights in the hospital. The gas patients, who in day-long suffocation cough their burnt lungs up in clots. Cautiously, the mouth applied to the valve, I breathe. The gas still creeps over the ground and sinks into all hollows. Like a big, soft jellyfish, it floats into our shell hole and lolls there obscenely. I nudge Cat. It is better to crawl out and lie on top than to stay here where the gas collects most. But we don't get as far as that. A second bombardment begins. It is no longer as though the shells roared. It is the earth itself raging. With a crash, something black bears down on us. It lands close beside us. A coffin thrown up. I see Cat move, and I crawl across. The coffin has hit the fourth man in our hole on his outstretched arm. He tries to tear off his gas mask with the other hand. Crop seizes him just in time, twists the hand sharply behind his back, and holds it fast. Cat and I proceed to free the wounded arm. The coffin lid is loose and bursts open. We are easily able to pull it off. We toss the corpse out. It slides down to the bottom of the shell hole. Then we try to loosen the under part. Fortunately, the man swoons, and Crop is able to help us. We no longer have to be careful, but work away till the coffin gives with a sigh before the spade that we have dug in under it. It has grown lighter. Cat takes a piece of the lid, places it under the shattered arm, and we wrap all our bandages round it. For the moment, we can do no more. Inside the gas mask, my head booms and roars. It is nigh bursting. My lungs are tight. They breathe always the same hot, used-up air. The veins in my temples are swollen. I feel I am suffocating. A gray light filters through to us. I climb out over the edge of the shell hole. In the dirty twilight lies a leg torn clean off. The boot is quite whole. I take that all in at a glance. Now someone stands up a few yards distant. I polish the windows. In my excitement, they are immediately dimmed again. I peer through them. The man there no longer wears his mask. I wait some seconds. He has not collapsed. He looks around and makes a few paces. Rattling in my throat, I tear my mask off too and fall down. The air streams into me like cold water. My eyes are bursting. The wave sweeps over me and extinguishes me. The shelling has ceased. I drag myself to the crater and tell the others. They take off their masks. We lift up the wounded man, one taking his splintered arm, and so we stumble off hastily. The graveyard is a mass of wreckage. Coffins and corpses lie strewn about. They have been killed once again, but each of them that was flung up saved one of us. The hedge is destroyed. The rails of the light railway are torn up and rise stiffly in the air in great arches. Someone lies in front of us. We stop. Crop goes on alone with the wounded man. The man on the ground is a recruit. His hip is covered with blood. He is so exhausted that I feel for my water bottle where I have rum and tea. Cat restrains my hand and stoops over him. "Where's it got you, comrade?" His eyes move. He is too weak to answer. We cut off his trousers carefully. He groans, "Gently, gently. It is much better." If he has been hit in the stomach, he oughtn't to drink anything. There's no vomiting. That's a good sign. We lay the hip bare. It is one mass of mincemeat and bone splinters. The joint has been hit. This lad won't walk any more. I wet his temples with a moistened finger and give him a swig. His eyes move again. We see now that the right arm is bleeding as well. Cat spreads out 2 wads of dressing as wide as possible so that they will cover the wound. I look for something to bind loosely round it. We have nothing more, so I slit up the wounded man's trouser leg still farther in order to use a piece of his underpants as a bandage. But he is wearing none. I now look at him closely. He is the fair-headed boy of a little while ago. In the meantime, Cat has taken a bandage from a dead man's pocket, and we carefully bind the wound. I say to the youngster, who looks at us fixedly, "We're going for a stretcher now." Then he opens his mouth and whispers, "Stay here." "We'll be back again soon," says Cat. "We are only going to get a stretcher for you." We don't know if he understands. He whimpers like a child and plucks at us. "Don't go away." Cat looks around and whispers, "Shouldn't we just take a revolver and put an end to it?" The youngster will hardly survive the carrying, and at the most he will only last a few days. What he has gone through so far is nothing to what he's in for till he dies. Now he is numb and feels nothing. In an hour he will become one screaming bundle of intolerable pain. Every day that he can live will be a howling torture. And to whom does it matter whether he has them or not? I nod. "Yes, Cat, we ought to put him out of his misery." He stands still a moment. He has made up his mind. We look round, but we are no longer alone. A little group is gathering. From the shell holes and trenches appear heads. We get a stretcher. Cat shakes his head. "Such a kid," he repeats it. "Young innocence." Our losses are less than was to be expected, 5 killed and 8 wounded. It was, in fact, quite a short bombardment. 2 of our dead lie in the upturned graves. We had merely to throw the earth in on them. We go back. We trot off silently in single file, one behind the other. The wounded are taken to the dressing station. The morning is cloudy. The bearers make a fuss about numbers and tickets. The wounded whimper. It begins to rain. An hour later, we reach our lorries and climb in. There is more room now than there was. The rain becomes heavier. We take out waterproof sheets and spread them over our heads. The rain rattles down and flows off at the sides in streams. The lorries bump through the holes, and we rock to and fro in a half-sleep. 2 men in the front of the lorry have long forked poles. They watch for telephone wires which hang crosswise over the road so densely that they might easily pull our heads off. The 2 fellows take them at the right moment on their poles and lift them over behind us. We hear their call, "Mind, wire," dip the knee in a half-sleep and straighten up again. Monotonously the lorries sway. Monotonously come the calls. Monotonously falls the rain. It falls on our heads and on the heads of the dead up in the line, on the body of the little recruit with the wound that is so much too big for his hip. It falls on Kemrick's grave. It falls in our hearts. An explosion sounds somewhere. We wince, our eyes become tense, our hands ready to vault over the side of the lorry into the ditch by the road. It goes no farther. Only the monotonous cry, "Mind, wire." Our knees bend. We are again half asleep. End of chapter 4.